So, Paula, we have another guest in the studio. Hello.
Yes. We have Jeremy Smtih. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello. Thanks for having me both.
Yeah, and so just as a brief background, last Friday, Qtopia Sydney opened its doors to share the journey of the queer community in Australia. Sydney's first LGBTQ plus museum, Qtopia is located in the old Darlinghurst police station next to Taylor Square, which I visited briefly on its opening weekend. So we have Jeremy Smtih in the studio. He's a Qtopia curator and an assistant curatorial coordinator, I think I got that right, who, as well as being an artist himself, is a PhD candidate at University New South Wales Art and Design. And he's curator and co-founder at Draw Space, which I covered in last week's Ask Thursday with two artists from its upcoming exhibition, Yvonne East and Eva Nolan. But today we're going to focus on Qtopia, so welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your space.
Jeremy's been saying it's a nice old-fashioned thing, and he's looking at all the old photos and all our racks of CDs.
Yes, it's got the
atmospheric.
Yes, artistic eye there.
It's like a movie set with all the pictures, and it looks great. What a great place to work.
Yeah, thank you. So tell us, why is it important that Qtopia has been established now and in Sydney?
Well, I think Qtopia has been a decades-long dream. You know, David Paulson, one of the first people diagnosed with HIV in Australia. He's only, of the 400 original, he's only one of 32 that's still alive. And his doctor, David Cooper, saved his life. And Dr. David Cooper spoke to his wife about the idea of having a place to store this history, of AIDS and HIV in Sydney, but then more broadly of the queer story of, Australia's queer community and Sydney's queer community. So this has been a long, long time coming. And I think for years people have been thinking, well, why don't we have a museum dedicated for the queer story? And after many, many attempts, it's finally come to fruition, and it's in such a amazingly historic venue, the old Darlinghurst police station that's been renovated. We've been working tirelessly to transform it into a really exciting and moving venue that people can explore all sorts of different subjects of the queer story in Sydney.
So it's right next to the National Art School, isn't it?
Yeah, just across the road.
Is it linked in any way to the NAS?
Well, we actually had our opening ceremony at NAS, but they've been helping us a lot. I'm sure there's a partnership there, but
yes.
It's that whole area. I really feel like it's becoming sort of an arts history precinct.
Great precinct.
Yeah.
So, and tell us a bit more about for people who don't know about the history of Darlinghurst Police Station. Why is it important that
it's got a very fraught story behind it. I mean, it's significant because that was where the original 78ers were taken on the night of June 24, 1978. It was a march to celebrate the anniversary of the Stonewall riots, which is considered by many the start of the queer rights movement in New York in 1969. And this peaceful, they called it a Mardi Gras because they didn't want it to be seen as a pride parade so that the police wouldn't harass them, and they were walking up William Street, and then the police descended on them, and then it turned very violent, and a lot of people were assaulted and violently beaten, and 53 of them were arrested and taken directly to the Darlinghurst police station. And in the cells that they were kept in, that's where we have some of our exhibitions now. So there's just a really eerie and beautiful sort of circularity of history coming around to this point. Even when I was working there and all the, doing drawings in my office and things, I just thought, what is going on here? I'm doing a table of queer terms, and I'm thinking, what happened in this space? I should mention the police have been incredibly supportive with this, and they've been very helpful. So it's a beautiful story. I think it's a...
So the courthouse itself still exists as a courthouse?
Yeah, the courthouse still exists, and actually our CEO, Greg Fisher, in his speech at the opening spoke about potentially the idea of maybe that becoming its own institution of some kind, and that removing that gate and having North Taylor Square a much more activated space, transforming the whole area into an arts precinct. Oxford Street is the Golden Gay Mile. It's the spiritual home of Sydney's gay world. So I'm so happy that it's right there, right on the on the beating heart of
Yeah,
the
it's
community.
sort of been reclaimed then. So I know you've got this building, but it's going to incorporate a couple of other buildings.
Yeah, so originally for World Pride, we had the bandstand in Green Park, which is just across from Sydney St Vincent's Hospital. Not only do we have the police station, but we actually have the substation, which is in North Taylor Square, and then the old toilet block, and there'll be exhibitions by one of our curators, Laura, in the toilet block, and there's also there'll be a space for music performances and exhibitions in the substation as well. They'll be open shortly.
Oh, that's great. So what are you've got there's certain themes that you've got for Qtopia. What are they?
Yeah, I mean, the main themes are, identity, sexuality, HIV and AIDS. You've got exhibitions dealing with the building itself, trans rights, the history of drag, Indigenous queer population. We've got exhibitions about the Sydney Star Observer, the main queer magazine, the Lottle, Lesbians on the Loose, Dykes on Bikes. The head curator, Liz Bradshaw, has done an incredible moving exhibition recreating Ward 17 South, which was the original ward that treated a lot of the first HIV patients. And actually, incredibly movingly, I met Debbie, shout out to Debbie, at the opening, who was the first person to diagnose anyone in Australia with HIV, the American landscape gardener back in, I think, 1982 or 83 at St Vincent's, and she was there, so that was an amazing moment to me.
Was she a doctor or a nurse? Or?
Yeah, she was a nurse, a part of the St Vincent's, and just amazing. All these incredible people coming out and sharing their stories, and that's what we really want, is to create a whole oral history of all these stories that otherwise would be lost.
Yeah. So are these the permanent exhibitions? Or
I believe they'll be rotating. I mean, I'm not the best person to speak to these because the head curator and others will, but there'll be rotating exhibitions in the future, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to renovate the top level of Qtopia, which will have even more spaces. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's very sculptural, I found, inside. You've got these white walls, and it's very organic. It's very nice. And so I was glad to have viewed your very imaginative works that are featured. Can you describe them?
Yeah, so my curatorial room is called We're Here, We're Queer, and basically it's a Pride room. The brief was to do a sort of celebratory Pride exhibition. So one work is a map of all the Pride events in Australia. So it maps out, as of 2024, all the main Pride events. And I've created this cartogram map of all the events, and you've got this big white space in the middle, and you've got Fab Alice right in the heart at Alice Springs. And
it's called that, isn't it? The festival, Fab Alice.
Fab Alice, yeah. Right. Then you've got the Top End Festival, and you've got the Broom Mardi Gras, and you've got Rainbow on the Plains and Broken Heel, which is a festival in Broken Heel.
Yes,
and
excellent.
then the other work is a work made for Qtopia. It's called Queer Elements, and it's a periodic table. It reinterprets the periodic table as an A to Z of queer terms. And
okay, like what?
Oh God, they're not sexually explicit. Well, some of the funny ones, like I like the one beard, where if you are trying to hide your sexuality, you'll get a partner, usually a woman, to be your beard, to pretend to conceal your sexual orientation.
Oh, right.
Another funny one is doppelbanger, where it's someone you're a person who's attracted to someone who looks just like you. There's so many. I love Judies, which is a term of endearment for gay men, referring to Judy Garland. So you'd call your friend Judies. What is another good one? I like U-Haul, which is a queer woman who shacks up very quickly with a partner. So it's like a U-Haul, they're moving in right away. Anyway, it's meant to be funny. It's lighthearted, lots of double entendre, lots of innuendo.
So how have you shown that? Because I've not seen this, so just explain.
So it's a drawing that's been digitally scanned and then printed as wallpaper on the wall, and it also goes alongside my other drawing, which is called Queer Sydney History, which is a work made for Sydney University, a commission piece that's a history of the queer community in Sydney. It's a large mural. So there's 3 sort of works in the space, and then we've got reflective flooring that makes the works, as you saw Paula, reflect onto the floor. Yeah, exactly.
It's very colourful. The one, the history, the gay history is very interesting. It's very, I would say, very detailed drawing, isn't it?
Yes, very detailed, yeah.
And then so you've got people and well-known people. You've done as in drawing form and lots of colours. So,
well, it's kind of it's a circular timeline. So it starts with our Indigenous history, on this land, and then it goes to colonial times. And interesting for listeners is the first recorded case of homosexuality in Australia was actually a Dutch shipwreck on the west coast of Australia. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Zeewick, and this ship was shipwrecked in 1727, and 2 Dutch boys were, in the captain's log convicted of sodomy, and they actually marooned the 2 boys on separate islands, and they had to watch each other basically die. And that was the first European case of homosexuality in Australia. So it's an incredible journey, because you go from these early criminal persecution stories to then stories in the 60s and 70s of liberation and fighting back. And then you have this tear in the map. I physically drew, in a very detailed map, I drew a rip, and there's names of some of the prominent Sydney men who passed away from HIV/AIDS. And then you come to the 2000s, 90s, 2010s, and so it really is a full timeline. And I tried to put everything in it that's possible. All the people, all the terms.
You have a lot of well-known people in there.
Yeah,
and you've drawn them, and they look really good. So, and you made it as wallpaper, and I asked whether some people commission you to have wallpaper on their walls.
Well, they could. I mean, it's because it's so detailed. It's hard. The original drawing, you have to really look closely, and it's in the permanent display on the stairwell at Sydney Uni Fisher Library. But if you blow it up as wallpaper, then people can really get into it and see all the detail, which I really want the public to see.
Yeah, and you've also, as well as you have your art there, you're also curator and co-founder at Drawspace, which I covered in last week's Ask Thursday. But can you explain its aims?
Well, Drawspace, thank you so much for doing that. I was glad that I could have 2 of the artists. Yeah, so I'm curating a show called Detail. It's, funnily enough, detailed artists. It's about detailed drawing. Drawspace was founded by Melinda, and she actually owns the building, and her idea, I think, along with the other founders, was that Sydney doesn't have a place dedicated specifically just to drawing. So Drawspace is, the only artist-run initiative space in Sydney that's dedicated just to drawing and experimental drawing. And look, as someone who's been a drawer all my life, there's definitely a hierarchy in the art world. You've got like painting and sculpture, and then drawing's often seen as
drawings under the table.
Yeah, it was seen as the preparatory. It's the beginner thing. But I actually feel like, because it's so immediate, because it's so linked with thought and expression of ideas, that drawing is having a bit of a renaissance, and it needs to be re-examined as its own form, an end in itself. It's not going anywhere. It is what it is. And I hope people can come to see Detail next Thursday the 7th. It's got some very great artists in it.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, because as you rightly say, sort of some people view it as the poor cousin of the other art forms, but it's got its own amazing sort of energy. And I didn't realise there were so many different styles to our chat last week.
Absolutely. There's we've had exhibitions of experimental drawing with thread. We've had exhibitions of people scratching into things. I mean, it's really mark making. It's how do you explore that. Detail is the show that I'm doing is much more of a drawer's drawing show. It's very fine line, intimate work, thousands of hours.
Do you draw in pencil or ink? Or?
I draw in pen because if I draw in pencil, I'll go mad because I'll rub things out and I'll never get it done. So if I work in ink, if I make a mistake, I just have to make it work. Just because my works take months to do. So that's, have to go forward. Don't look back.
One of the artists last week was saying that she spends thousands of hours and it used to be a huge canvas. She worked on it. I don't know if that's the right word for it, and now she's reduced it to a very small size.
You're talking about Eva Nolan? Yeah. I mean, Eva's one of the best artists in the show, and she works with a dentist magnifying glass to do her drawings.
Amazing.
It's incredible. And when you see her works, they're quite small and they're really beautiful illustrative works of natural elements, and you look at it, and there's so many layers. You start at one viewing and then you look closer and you can just have this forensic view that just goes further and further down.
Incredible. Yeah, and your other artist who came,
Yvonne,
Yvonne, she does larger.
Yeah, amazing. And also incredibly realistic portraits and drawings of family members and very moving mother work as well.
So it tells where you've sort of highlighted the value of and importance of drawing, because it seems to be so direct and quick. Can you tell us a bit more?
How much time do you have? I could talk about drawing all day. I mean, I'm doing my PhD in drawing, and I think...
what's the basis of your thesis? Is it a practical one, or have you got a particular view?
It's a drawing thesis. I mean, it's basically looking at the ways in which cartography, map making, can be used in an artistic way to tell stories, particularly about the queer community. That's the shortest answer I can give.
Okay.
But I think drawing, I mean, as a boy, I remember some of my earliest memories were drawing as a way to understand the world. And I would start drawing things I knew, imaginative things, and then in my undergrad I drew, portraits of myself, and then in my master's I drew portraits of other people, and now in my PhD I'm doing sort of community portraits of mapping whole areas. So I feel like it's been this ongoing journey of mapping larger and larger things and drawing things, but it's the way I explore the world, and it's fascinating. I'm writing the essay for Detail at the moment, and I had an interview with ABC Radio this morning actually for Detail, and there's a specific personality, psychological type of the detail artist. I think someone who is really observational, and someone I think you need a lot of quiet observation skills, but then also a real love of the flow state that you get into. So a lot of artists talk about the mindfulness and meditative quality of really immersing yourself. And these artists don't shy away from 50 plus 100-hour drawings. And it's hard to explain, I think, if you've never spent that long doing it. But
I suppose botanical artists are a bit like that, aren't they?
Yes, very much
do it
so.
in such detail and take such a long time to get it to the quality that they want.
And you really need to observe very closely and capture every little, bit of the plant. And there's a forensic quality to it as well. But a lot of artists are quite anal about it as well, very, precise. And there's a very...
That's what I think Eva was saying, because she studies biology, I think, in different animals. And that's why they're very...
Her research is all trying to break down the hierarchy of animals and humans, and she does these incredible... I have such a crush on her art. She does these incredible mishmashes of plants and animals together, these that are all kind of this mass of detail.
That's incredible. So, well, how are we going for time?
We're okay.
That's good.
I'll start to do wind-up signals.
So it's interesting. I was reading about drawing. There's also you want to have this space to do more research on drawing. Is that right?
I think research in art is in practical art. Practical art PhDs are a very new thing. They were only came about in the 80s. The idea of doing research into art in a practice-based setting, in a studio setting, is very new. So it's sort of led to this whole field of, well, what is research into art? It's not art history research. It's not theory. You're actually researching the practice itself. So what is it about the way that you make the art? What is it in your practice? So I think that's the new vein of research, and that's what's very interesting. You've got a lot of art theory research, but what is the theory about why you make your work, how you make it, and particularly in drawing, what draws you to drawing, I
suppose it's like all the art diaries that kids use at school.
In
a way, they get used to that sort of thing. I'm interested, when you're looking at practice, do you only look at your own practice, or do you actually go and talk and observe other people?
Oh no, 100%. There's no practice in a vacuum. I mean, every artist is a good thief, and they're inspired by other people. But it's just you're one of a collective, and that's what a research should do. Add one brick to a wall that's building this understanding of art and its practice. And I think right now drawing's having a bit of a renaissance. There's really a move back to reassessing the power of it, not just as a medium to go somewhere else or a preparatory medium, but it's so immediate. It breaks down hierarchy. You don't need expensive paintbrushes. You can get people doodle. I'm sure with your pens right now.
You could paper and a crayon almost.
Yeah, and it's like it's children draw a lot. It's linked with thought. If you do a mind map, if you want to quickly write something down, I mean, there's so much research into symbols and what people doodle and all sorts of things.
Yes, but terrifying, I think. The Dobell Prize is one drawing prize.
Yes.
Are there many drawing prizes?
Yes, there's the Dobell, there's the Adelaide Perry Prize, there's I can't think on the top of my head. There's a few drawing prizes. I mean, the Dobell would probably be the most famous.
I think it's interesting that drawing is described as an activity as much as a medium. I think that's I was reading about that, and how you're talking how quick it can be, but it also can be labour intensive, and I think that's interesting. You got both sides.
Yeah,
right?
And you can have that real range from very gestural mark making to fine detail. And I also like to bring back to it's at the genesis of thought. Drawing is so often associated with sketching out an idea or coming. So I love when you look at Da Vinci's notebooks or, those sorts of things where it's not meant to be polished and finished in a sense, but it's showing the inner workings of a mind through the work of the pen and through the work.
Did he draw in pencil, or did he, whatever the pencil might have been, the pencil type, or did he draw
they exist today. That's a good question. I don't actually know. I wonder if what kind of, probably. They're incredibly beautiful and insightful and exploratory kind of drawings. Yeah.
And we're talking about the prize, the Tim Olsen drawing prize. You exhibited with that.
Oh, I won it once.
We better do a bit of a move on.
Okay, and I do note that the State Library of New South Wales has purchased 2 of your original works.
Yes, very lucky.
Well, congratulations. You're obviously got great talent in this area.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to us today all about Qtopia as well as
Yes, please come to Qtopia. It's really for everyone. It's whoever you are. And it's really meant to be a welcoming space that you can understand, ally, straight, whatever your sexual orientation is, it's for everyone.
It's a beautiful place too. I think, like I said, it's very sculptural inside. It's very interesting what you've done with it. It's an old building. Thank you. Thanks for talking to us today. And
thank you for having me.
And we'll also note that the draw exhibition
detailed
is on a week today, 7th.
Yes, the 7th. Come. We'll have some alcohol if that's what you're interested in, and see some amazing.
And that's in Newtown, isn't it?
In Newtown, draw space.
Right.
Thank you very much.
So much.